Alright, we're going to go ahead and get our hook in the vise. This is an Umpqua, I think it's an XS 425 or something like that, and then size 1. And then some of my favorite thread, which is the Semperfly Nano Silk. This is 100D, which is what you would use for most streamers. The 200 is a little aggressive unless you're spinning deer hair. But I'm going to go through the tail, which is just white marabou. This is bleached white from Fish Hunter, which is some of my favorite. If you can find that in your local shop, that is by far, I think, some of the best quality you can find. And here we're going to take the tail of this, and it's going to be about an inch, maybe an inch and a half. I'm just going to do some wraps on that to secure it and make sure it's right where I want it. I lift up all that additional fluff we don't need and cut it. And just try to, at all costs, not get that all going crazy around the hook eye. Then we're going to wrap back towards the bend of the hook. I do another wrap up towards the eye, and then back down towards the bend of the hook, where it will almost fall right above that barb. And then we have some heron gray. This is also Fish Hunter Marabou. I just have the bulk pack of it, and you're seeing a tiny little bit of it. But one feather will do you, and we're just going to make it the same distance as the white. So I'm just stacking it right on top. I'm going to do a couple of wraps up towards the eye. Same process. I'm going to cut it off, and it feels a little tough. But oh, well, I just cut my thread. So happens to everybody, or maybe it doesn't happen to like actual really good tires or something, but it happens to me. So we're just going to restart that and wrapping it back towards the tail, and basically all I just did right there was put my thread back on, just like you're starting the hook over again, and you'll be perfectly set. And I'm going to clean up any of those little fluffy sections that kind of want to shoot out of my thread wraps, just to make the wrapping process of our body material easier. And the body material is a Chocolate's Finesse chenille. This is medium, and it is in the clear color. So medium is about like 3/4 inch, and I'm going to tie it in by the little core strand that you see there, and then bring my thread up to the eye of the hook and let my thread sit there. That's going to be my stopping point. And we're going to do touching wraps with this material. So we want the core, so you can see the little string there. We want those to be touching the wraps that you just put down. And on these flies, usually on a size 1 hook, I get 10 wraps. That's my kind of standard to make sure that everything comes out to be the exact same. And I'm definitely cutting it close. I think I cut that strand like 4 inches or something, so I would cut it 5 inches if you want something better to work with. And I'm right at the end. So I'm going to do 2 wraps over that, as long as it doesn't come undone. And tighten down with my right hand, and then do a couple wraps in front of that. And that's going to really lock that material in place. And then if you can get it, I can still see the core. So I'm going to cut that off. Do a couple more thread wraps to just clean up the head, and then I'm going to use some Solares Thin just to make sure this does not fall apart. So just hand whip finish, and then we'll do some head cement. Now we have a 25 millimeter articulated fish spine. These are my favorite ones for this. I've tried larger diameters because I was afraid maybe they would bend or break. I've never had these ones break on a fish, not on a smallmouth, that is. So we're going to take that and put the shank to where the shank is what's being held by the vise. So you're going to have to get used to seeing that hook back there because you don't want to hit your hand or something. But we're just going to go ahead and do a bunch of thread wraps to close up that opening towards the back of the shank. I'm going to do even more wraps at this point, because I want that to be tight. That way this hook doesn't go crazy when you're actually fishing it. So I'll probably do a zoom in of like the distance that I like of kind of that ratio of where does my thread start to the back of that shank, just to make sure you have maximum movement, but you minimize the hook. Maybe it's fouling or something like that, which is rare when it's, I know these flies are pretty small, but, and just super glue, which is going to hold in our finesse body material. This is the large. I'm going to tie this in the exact same way as you tied in the medium. So we're doing touching wraps. As you're wrapping up, your left hand is pulling those fibers back. So same exact way as we did the back. So left hand is pulling those fibers back, then you're wrapping it right beside the material that you just put down. I'm going to go super speed here probably because this is a bit boring. Alright, on that one, I think I did 20 wraps. I kind of lost count, but it's about double the distance of that size 1 hook, so 20 would make sense to me. We're going to cut that off and clean it up a little bit more. Just doing some thread wraps. You can make the thread head here a little more large because we're going to actually just dump a ton of super glue on this. But I'll hand whip finish again. If you don't know how to hand whip finish, that's a great skill to learn because it makes things a lot faster. We're going to cut that off. Don't worry if you have some little stragglers, because the next thing we're going to do is take some Zap-A-Gap gel. It being gel, that is the most important thing for these heads because it gives you a little bit longer of work time and it holds better. I'm just going crazy with it. Then we have a Rainey's white foam diver head in the small. I like the diver heads. I also like the fish head sliders. They both do 2 different actions on the fly. As the name implies, a diver head is going to cause this fly to dive a little bit and then float back up to the top. Got a ton of super glue coming out. If you have a bunch of excess, you can just wipe it on the fly. A lot of times I wipe it on like the bottom or the sides because that just makes it a little more resilient to teeth marks. And you can definitely see the start of it. You take a bodkin or just some paper clip or something and clean out the eye. Just make sure you don't have any gel super glue in that. And we're getting there. I'm liking the look of this thing. To make sure that it can swing freely, I always kind of finagle them for a little bit right now and see what I think of it. And this one passes, so I'm going to go ahead and put the hook in the vise this time, and we're going to have to do a bit of trimming. Just make sure that that head is free, no fibers have been trapped or glued or anything, because that'll mess up your trim job. And when you're trimming this thing, I do little tiny amounts and just kind of work my way from the top of that foam head all the way down to the base of the marabou. So that's my angle, and I'm just kind of working towards that. And I honestly probably spend too much time trimming these things, but I like them to be perfect. I've caught a lot of fish on them, and sometimes it goes crazy, but you just keep cutting and trimming, and hopefully, once a couple fish have eaten it, it all stays together. And then we take a gray, this is just a marker, I don't know what the heck, how you say this, Copic, I don't know, but it's one of those markers. You've seen them, they're stupid expensive. And again, this is just for the angler. I don't think fish give, 2 thoughts about what the top of the fly looks like. They're coming from the bottom and they're eating this thing. So, me putting this gray on here is honestly just because I think it looks cool. And after you fish it a little bit, it kind of blends in and it really makes it look like just a little bait fish. So then we've got living eyes. These are ice 4mm. 4mm, I like them on the small heads. I kind of just put them on my thumb, and then that's like the holding place. I think Gunnar Brammer, I saw somebody do that like a couple years back, and I like that. So we're going to do gel super glue. I'm doing a very healthy amount. Again, I don't think fish really care about eyes on this fly because they're just seeing a commotion on the surface, but eyes are cool to look at in the fly box. It's fun it makes kind of the fly seem like it comes alive. So you go from just a normal white little head to all of a sudden you've got a little minnow. And I'm going to take that bodkin, just press it down lightly, and then we've got a bunch of excess that you can see there. I'm going to take a damp paper towel and kind of clean that up. So if you don't do that, then eyes will get like a fog sort of look to them, which is the super glue, I guess, a chemical reaction that's happening. As it dries, it just leaves that sort of residue. So to stop that from happening, I give it a couple seconds, and then I go in there with a damp paper towel and just wipe that off and kind of up. So the super glue is going to stay, a lot of it stays on the head, but it just cleans up the look of those things a lot. I really like those. You can do pink. If you have pink color, you can do that on the bottom. Fish will see that. But they're cool little fly. I've caught a lot of fish on them on the James, Shenandoah, a lot of our local waters. Overall fly length's about 2.5 inches, 2 3/4. But that's it.